So there are a couple of things that was said by you and Travis is patterns in practice. And what I've had multiple cases where I've looked at a Monell claim within the lawsuit where they're identifying patterns and practices that the police department has failed on, deliberate indifference or failure to train or anything that falls into that context. And here's the issue with it. They define patterns and practice with no investigative data. That's why you don't see any investigative data, because it doesn't exist. If they were to actually identify a pattern and a practice, that means they would have to go through every single arrest, whether that's a physical arrest or a citation, an arrest by citation, and look at all of the components of those individuals and how they were treated and what the outcome was, and if there were complaints and if the officers did something right or wrong. They have none of that data. What they're taking is raw numbers manipulated in a way to fit the narrative that they're creating to create a lawless society. And if you go out and ask anyone that's because I have family in Grants Pass, I have family in Portland, Oregon, I have family in Seattle. And when we talk about what's happening there, if you ask anyone in the public about what they would like to see happen, they will answer this. And I don't care what side of the fence they're on, Democratic or Republican, they want a lawful society. They want control in society so they can move about their day as an American, right? With the freedoms and the rights that they have. But that's not the case because it is so lawless. We've got homeless people sexually assaulting women in California. There's a particular case I looked at that was a huge video. The guy gets up and literally physically sexually assaults a woman. He was put in jail and out the next day with no bail. This is the type of, because he's experiencing homelessness. Listen, that doesn't stop society from being a lawless environment where our citizens can't operate, and law enforcement their hands are tied based on the false narrative of patterns and practices. And it's an awful environment for people to have to live in.
Yeah, the only pattern and practice that's going on here is the DOJ ruins every city they go to. You know, I've said this here a myriad of times that the majority of the top 20 most violent cities in America are ran by the DOJ Consent Decrees. So any leader, any chief, any police department, any city council that says come into our city, you are asking for total and utter destruction and the purge in real time. And so I have no more sympathy for these cities anymore. When you invite them in, that's exactly what you're going to get, because that is the pattern and practice. Nobody can point to one city that has improved on the metrics that all Americans care about: crime, how many officers you have, the budget of your cities. They are completely destroyed, and there's not even a question about it. But they're somehow still rolling around the country doing this only because we're letting them chip. People need to understand this. The 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution prohibits the federal government from running your local city. They prohibit the federal government from running your police department, from running your city council. Okay? The only way they can get around that is they get agreement with those communities. And so that's all Phoenix has done, is they've upheld their constitutional right to run their own police department. And the DOJ's response was a complete and utter scam of a report. And I hope we hear more about this report, because Louisville found out after the fact the scam of that report. I think Phoenix is taking this from a different approach. I think they're looking at the report first before they make a decision. And I know what the decision will be if they do that, because that report, by the way, the local media in Phoenix has already pointed out several instances that they knew were a lie. And so when the local media starts turning against this, mainstream media, I think they're on the right path there in Phoenix.